The Supreme Court could rule as soon as today on whether a controversial Texas immigration law can take effect.
The law that's known as SB4 makes it unlawful to cross the border, and not just in terms of the federal laws, but also a state crime. What that means is that Texas law enforcement can arrest and deport migrants who attempt to enter the country without seeking asylum. The Biden administration is challenging the law and wants it put on hold. Our Omar Villafranca spoke with one Texas sheriff who says his team has gotten very little guidance from the state so far.
Do you feel that law enforcement was consulted enough when this law was being made in Austin?
I don't think so.
Any new task forces being formed for this law?
No.
Any new vehicles for this law?
No.
Any new training yet?
Not yet. Not yet.
Just a new law?
Yeah, just a new law.
CBS News correspondent Omar Villafranca is following this for us from Dallas. Omar, thank you very much for being here. If this law is allowed to stand, can Texas enforce it? Does it have the resources to actually get it done?
Well, they'll have to do it in order to follow the Constitution and to follow the oath that the police and the sheriff deputies swore to. And basically, it would make it a state crime if they are maybe possibly caught crossing over or suspected of being. It's very vague. Every law enforcement person that I've talked to has basically said they're waiting on some sort of guidance from the state to make sure. It's not just usually handing down a law. There has to be some sort of legal guidance for this. So the language in it is very vague, and that's one of the big complaints I'm hearing from law enforcement. If this goes into effect at 4 p.m. Central Time, 5 o'clock Eastern, it's a law they have to enforce, and they're not fully read in on how to do it.
So, Omar, what is the governor saying in terms of why the law is necessary?
Well, he's saying, one, he's pointing fingers at the Biden administration and saying that the record surge that we've all covered is partially to blame for the Biden administration, blames the Biden administration, and says that if the Biden administration is not going to enforce the federal laws that are on the books, then the state of Texas will. And Governor Abbott told Cecilia Vega on a 60 Minutes interview that this is basically, it's not a Texas policy, it's not a Texas immigration law, it's just enforcing federal law. That's what he says. Now, he says the way the law is written, if somebody is suspected of entering the country illegally, not through a port of entry, then law enforcement can go up to them and start talking to them. That, of course, creates a bunch of legal questions and conundrums if implemented incorrectly. And that's one thing that law enforcement wants guidance on. The big fear is racial profiling. That's just one of the fears.
Well, yeah, say more about that if you could, Omar, because the definition of suspected is going to be in the eyes and the minds of the officers patrolling that border there. I guess they're going to be making, well, what kind of judgments are they going to be able to make about who may or may not be coming over or crossing illegally?
Well, and what's interesting is that sheriff deputies have told me an easy case scenario for them is if they pull over an 18-wheeler and migrants were being smuggled in on the back, they said that is an easy case for them. People who are suspected of crossing over illegally, not through a port of entry or doing the right thing, it's an easy arrest for them to make then. But if it's somebody walking in an area, like their question is, what are we supposed to do? And that's just the implication of the law. I mean, the implementation of the law. We've heard from them, from sheriff and police. We don't have the people power. We don't have the vehicles. And the big thing I'm hearing from sheriffs is if we do have to arrest migrants, sheriffs in Texas run the jails, the county jails. They're going to have to move them to a county jail. Sheriff Martin Guerra in Webb County told me that if he had to arrest 10 migrants and put them in jail, that would put his jail in flux. If he had to do 20, it would be a crisis mode because they're still doing the regular day-to-day business that a sheriff does in town. So arresting 10 to 20 migrants would basically put the jail almost at capacity.
Really interesting stuff, and puts increased pressure on the federal government, on Congress to come up with a solution. Meantime, Texas is trying to figure out something, it seems like. We'll see how it goes. Omar, really appreciate it. Thank you very much.